Well, I'm excited to be here. It's an awesome opportunity for all of us. I want everyone to take a moment and picture that one leader in your mind who really stood for something, who was exceptional, who practiced leadership through a series of principles. And I ask that you hold on to that image in your mind throughout this pretty short talk. And at the end, I'm going to ask you some questions. 2007, I was preparing to take over Recruit Academy process at my organization, and I knew that our recruits were going to be well prepared operationally. We had a fantastic curriculum. We had some really talented instructors. But I also recognized that those newest members of our organization were the future leaders of it. And I wanted to arm them with some principles that they could take forward to be successful. I knew what leaders I had seen in my own life and what they meant to me and what principles they practiced. But what I didn't fully understand is why they practiced those principles or how they got to that point. I began on a pretty exhaustive search on the topic of leadership. I read anything I could. I was involved with blogs. I talked to leaders within my own organization, outside of it, in the private sector and in academia. And I was confused and I was frustrated. Most of what I saw had 10 to 12 defined principles, and within those principles were up to 20 traits or practices that lended themselves to those principles. And it was confusing, and it was even more difficult to try to practice those in a practical format day in, day out. And it was when I was going through this process that I came across a really short speech written by General John Shalishkavili. That is very difficult to say up here, by the way. So in 1995, he was the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, 35-year career in the military services, exceptional career. And he talked about the foundation of his leadership and that foundation was held up by these three pillars. And he was sharing this speech at an ROTC award ceremony, and when I was done reading it, it absolutely punched me between the eyes. Not only in its simplicity, but in my opinion, its accuracy. So the three pillars, he talked about trust, love and care for the men and women under your command, and professional competence. Trust. I think we can all agree in this room, it's very difficult to lead if you're not trusted. In fact, I might even say it's impossible. Several months ago, I was sitting around a table with some other captains in my organization, and we were talking about who was coming into our stations, who was transferring in. We asked ourselves, well, are they operationally sound? Are they hard workers? And we asked, can we trust them? I left that meeting driving home, and I thought to myself, I think we have it wrong. I think the question that we should have been asking ourselves is, can they trust us? Can they trust that we're going to hold their personal information confidential? Everyone in this room has probably experienced in their own lives or seen it where personal information has gotten out about somebody and it's damaging and it's hurtful. But I don't think what we fully realize as leaders is that when that information gets out, it absolutely kills us. And we won't lose the trust of our people for a month, for two. We're not going to gain it back in a year. When it's lost, it's lost. So how do we get there? Well, we get there first by assuming goodwill. In my 16 years in the fire service, I've never seen anyone come to work to purposely do a bad job. Through these bright lights, I can see a couple eyebrows raised. Man, I've seen somebody come to work to do a bad job. And you're right. But the key there is purposefully. You see, as leaders, it falls on us to figure out what the root cause of that problem is and to stay curious. And when we're curious, we ask questions. And when we ask questions, we're forced to listen. And when we listen, we build trust. Other ways that we can build trust within our companies is to look down, don't look up. I have failed at this in my career more times than I can possibly count. And that's where I'm so concerned about what that battalion chief thinks or what that division chief thinks. Man, am I hitting the bullseye? Am I doing everything they want me to do? And every time that I do that, I forget to look down. Look down, I don't mean that demeaning. I mean with your people. What's going on there? Are we operationally sound? Are we firing on every cylinder? Are we taking care of business? And if the answer is yes to all of those things, my bosses are happy. But when I take sight off of them and I worry about what my bosses think, I lose perspective and I begin to make emotionally based decisions, guessing what they want from me. And then I'm not caring for them. I'm not building trust. Other ways that we can build trust within our companies, our people, is give credit to our people for the things we got right. The reality, it is their credit, because without great followership, we can't lead. The credit is there. And conversely, take ownership over things they didn't get quite right, whether that be socially, morally, ethically, operationally. We own it. We own it as leaders, because it can only fall in one of two camps. We either failed to properly lead them, or we failed to properly train them, and we own it. That's not very common anymore, to raise the hand and say, I got that one. That was all me. Second pillar, this is probably the most confused of the three pillars. Love and care for the men and women under your command. Oftentimes it's assumed that that's pandering, or it looks like you got a young firefighter, you throw an arm around him, hey, everything's going to be fine. I know you had a terrible day, I'll make it all better. No, it's not that at all. True love and care for them is setting clear and defined expectations that are attainable and allowing them to set clear and defined expectations for you. Almost everyone in this room has sat across the table from a boss, a manager, a leader, company officer, battalion chief, and a paper came sliding across the table. And on that paper was a list of expectations. But what's not so common is for that leader to ask you, what are your expectations for me? And I think what you'll hear if you take the chance and do that, I need to trust you. I need you to care for me. And at the end of the day, I need you to be professionally competent because I have to go home. Love and care for the men and women under our commands is they need to see you do hard things. And they need to see you do those hard things well. Whether you're in the fire service, private sector, it doesn't matter. At some point, training needs to occur, and that training is packaged up and delivered. And we crawl, and then we walk, and then we run. But what's not common is for that leader to raise their hand and say, I'll go first. I'll take a chance on myself, and furthermore, I'll take a chance on you. And I think the fear is that I might stumble in front of them. Fale said, they need to see me do hard things and hard things well. Well, you're not going to do that every time. But that small failure is a leadership softball coming across the plate, and you're going to knock it out of the park. Because that small failure sets you up for success. They're going to see you get up, dust off. They're going to see you identify the problem, attack it, and then completely dominate it. And that's going to speak more powerfully to them than any words that you could say. Love and care for the men and women under your command is placing yourself in a position to endure shared hardship. What does that look like? Well, I know what it looks like. It looks like where I'm first due on a fire. We've had a tough fire attack. We've taken care of the lion's share of the overhaul, and I look around at them and I can see that they are done. They're tired. Their arms won't raise past the points of their shoulders because they pulled so much ceiling. And I look at them and I say, hey, this is our fire and this is our company. And we got 3 more rooms to pull, and this is our work. Will you do it with me? And I guarantee every time they'll say yes. And the reason that they'll say yes is because we've endured shared hardship. Those of us that enjoy robust staffing and a lot of people, it's really easy to stand back and just let the troops do the work. Take those opportunities to endure that shared hardship. And furthermore, when you endure it, you work from a place of moral authority. As leaders, we have 2 types of authority. We have moral and legal. First time legal occurs is when you get your bars pinned on, you take an oath. Second time legal occurs is when you say, I order you to do something. And as leaders, that should churn our guts, because that means we missed something. And we need to ask some really hard questions. Do they trust me? Have I cared for them? And do they think I'm professionally competent? And if I have to order somebody to do something, I guarantee the answer to one of those questions is no. True love and care for the men and women under your command is working from a position of moral authority, and you can't talk about it, you got to do it. Professional competence. Professional competence doesn't begin the day that you sit in that right front seat, but rather it began the first day that you walked through the threshold of that door into that organization. Did you take the time to be a craftsman? Did you listen? Did you ask questions? Did you allow yourself to be mentored? Did you strive to fully master that job before you moved on? And then when you did move on, are you still striving to master that job? Are you doing everything that you can? Are you making an intense study of your craft? Professional competence is having an intimate awareness of the job above you. You'll hear, hey, know the job above you. That's not always possible. But you can have an intimate awareness of it. And when you are aware of the job above you, you can anticipate your commander's intent. And when you can anticipate that intent, you can make informed and timely decisions as leaders. Professional competence is built through a series of increasingly difficult tasks and assignments. Ask everybody in this room. Cody gave a couple of homework assignments. This maybe is a long-term assignment. If you're in a slow house, get to a busy one. If you can't get to a busy one, go back to school. Go to conferences. Take on projects and training assignments. Push yourself to be more tomorrow than what you are today, and push your people to do the same. And words are cheap. They're going to follow your actions. So show them the way. Be hard on yourself. That's not very popular to say anymore. What's popular to say is, hey, go easy. Don't be hard on yourself. Take a break. It's going to be okay. Man, you're so hard on yourself. Be hard on yourself. We are not making widgets. The decisions that we make affect people's lives. And we don't have a whole lot of time to make them. So be hard on yourselves on the mundane ones. Drill them down. Every interaction that you have, everything that comes out of your mouth, every small decision that you make on that nothing call, drill it down. And in there, you'll find a way to improve. Be hard on yourselves. Your people are counting on you to make good decisions. At the beginning of this, I asked you to think about that one leader that you've had in your life who was exceptional, who really stood for something and followed a set of principles. And now I'd ask you to reflect on the talk that we've had, and at a minimum, ask yourself, did you trust them? Did they care for you? And finally, were they professionally competent? And I bet if they were an excellent or exceptional leader, the answer to those questions will be yes. Thank you. I enjoyed this.